guys, welcome back to another video. This is going to be a PlayStation heavy video, as there was a lot of news yesterday from PlayStation, some good, some bad. People always say that not enough people talk about the bad stuff that PlayStation does, but whenever Xbox does something bad, everyone is talking about it. And we'll talk about it all here in this video. But first of all, let's talk about this. An acquisition by PlayStation, as they have now acquired Firewalk Studios. And it's a very interesting time for an acquisition, as we know everything that is going on with the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition, the pushback from PlayStation trying to block the merger, talking about how it would essentially allow Xbox to foreclose them if they did anything to Call of Duty, even though Xbox has offered Call of Duty for 10 years to PlayStation, a deal which they have rejected. And now they're out here going and acquiring more studios. Now, this isn't the first acquisition they've done in the last couple of years. There's been plenty of acquisitions. The biggest one that they've done recently has been Bungie. And now Firewalk Studios is another one just announced. And it says here, I'm excited to announce that we've expanded our relationship with Firewalk Studios and are thrilled to welcome them to PlayStation Studios. Firewalk is home to a remarkably talented team of creatives who have launched some of gaming's most celebrated experiences, and they're already hard at work on their first original AAA multiplayer game for PlayStation. And that is the key right there, why PlayStation would go out and make this acquisition. AAA multiplayer games. We know PlayStation is known for the very similar style of third-person single-player experiences from their first parties, and they know to be able to compete going forward, they're going to have to expand out the first-party games that they make, get more into multiplayer, because they haven't been very successful at all with multiplayer games over the last number of years. Like, you think about Destruction All-Stars, how much of an abysmal fail that was, and then there is going to be the factions coming out for The Last of Us Part 2, which was originally supposed to be a part of the actual Last of Us release, and we know the whole thing with that, where they came out and said it was too ambitious, and now they're going to be breaking it off into its own game. We don't know how they're going to monetize that, whether that's going to be a full price experience, or is it going to be something where it's free to play and then there's microtransactions. Not too sure yet, but I'm sure they'll be showing off that game sometime soon. But they want to make, I think it was 10 live service games or 12 live service games or something like that between now and 2026, as they know that's where they're lacking. And this is what this acquisition is going to help them do, which is go out and make another AAA multiplayer game. And on top of that, there are people at Firewalk Studios who previously worked at Bungie, lots of experienced developers. We actually go over here to their website, and it says here they were formed in 2018 as a part of Probably Monsters. Firewalk Studios, led by seasoned developers who know and love multiplayer games. Our experienced leadership team has helped launch some of the biggest entertainment properties across games and film that have garnered millions of dedicated fans and made an impact on their lives. We carry the same passion and drive into our next adventure together. Now, in terms of the games that they have worked on, it says here that they have worked on titles such as Call of Duty, Destiny, Apex Legends, Halo, and others. And that's, I guess, another big key as to why they went out and purchased the studio. They're going to have to work on something that potentially could rival Call of Duty, whether they like it or not. They're still going to have Call of Duty on their platform, but they want to create something where they won't have to rely on that franchise in order to literally hold up their entire business. Because that's been one of the most insane, absurd arguments, I think, that has been made from PlayStation throughout the entire Xbox Activision merger talk, has been them essentially saying that if you take away Call of Duty, their entire platform crumbles, their entire business crumbles, and they would just have to shut down essentially. So they're probably thinking along the lines that, hey, we don't have to want to rely on a franchise that more than likely is going to be a first party Xbox studio, whatever happens with the merger, and then having to pay their direct rival all of this money, where at some point, if they're able to build a competitor to Call of Duty, they can just say they can change how they interact with Call of Duty. I don't think it'll ever come off of the platform, but if they can transfer enough users who are playing Call of Duty on PlayStation to whatever first party multiplayer game they make, it gives Xbox less power over PlayStation, specifically with that IP. So maybe that's what they're thinking. We don't know. In terms of Call of Duty competitors, I mean, you think of the game currently right now in beta, X Defiant, which I've actually been playing a bit of. It's pretty damn good. And I think there's a lot of Call of Duty players out there that are really enjoying X Defiant And I think if Ubisoft can pull this off, it'll be one of the first times that we see a real competitor to Call of Duty come up and challenge it in terms of the amount of people that are playing it and the overall popularity. And if that happens, I think that provides a lot of hope to a lot of other studios out there that would think that it's impossible to challenge Call of Duty. So this is a smart acquisition, I would say, by PlayStation. Although, I mean, Firewalk Studios, it's a smaller acquisition. It obviously is nowhere comparable to the stuff that Xbox is doing in terms of purchasing Activision Blizzard, which is just insanely massive. But PlayStation continues to make acquisitions. So whenever we hear people saying that they're against acquisitions on the PlayStation side of things, it's absolutely not true, because they know that in order to grow, in order to continue to expand out their portfolio, they're going to have to continue to make acquisitions. And we'll see what comes out of Firewalk Studios, what type of multi-platform game or multiplayer game. And it's going to be something that, hey, they put out there that will be available multi-platform, because we know Xbox with some of their first party stuff, they do put multi-platform for multiplayer stuff where they know if they do take it off other platforms, they will lose money. Maybe PlayStation's thinking along those lines, that this will be a PlayStation Studios game that is available across PC, even on Xbox, even on the Nintendo Switch potentially, and on PlayStation. But we'll see. Just another piece of news in the acquisitions. Now, when it comes to some more PlayStation stuff, they are doing some not great things here when it comes to the pricing of their games on Steam. It says PlayStation has significantly increased Steam game prices in some countries. I live in Canada, so it affects me, because it says Canada and Japan among the countries to see rises, while Argentina is hit particularly hard. This was first spotted by a Reset Era user. The price of Sackboy, Big Adventure, and Returnal have been increased in Argentina, Canada, Chile, China, Colombia, Japan, and South Korea. And it's really interesting. This is the exact same thing PlayStation did with the PlayStation console itself. They increase the price of the consoles or of their products in countries where they have probably a massive lead. I haven't looked at where their lead is in all these countries, but I would assume just by a quick glance here, PlayStation has a big lead over the competition in many of these countries listed, and they increase the prices there because they can gouge their customers. They know they have so much power over them. They know that they aren't going to be losing customers with these smaller incremental price increases. One thing I always said with the PS5, when they increased the price by $30 in some countries, I think it was like $50 in other countries, or $20 or whatever it was. You have a lot of people out there where PlayStation over the years has been the top of their mind. They wouldn't even realize that price increased. They would just be walking into the store wanting to buy a PlayStation with that new price point, and they would have no idea that a month earlier or a year earlier or whenever it was, that the PS5 was actually cheaper. And they know that because they dominate a lot of these markets, and they can take advantage of customers by raising their prices. And I guess they're doing the same thing here when it comes to the software via Steam, which is their games on PC. It says VGC has verified these price rises using Steam database and found that other PlayStation titles, including God of War and Spider-Man remasters, have received similar price increases. So the price increases vary by country. In Canada, all 4 games have been up by $10, which represents 14.5% to 17% increases based on their starting prices. In Japan, the games have risen by approximately 29% and 32.5%. And I think that's very telling, because we know just there's no competition to PlayStation in Japan. Like if we're using the high-end console market definition that the regulatory bodies in Sony have created, because obviously the Nintendo Switch still does extremely well, but you could also argue that it's kind of a different market in terms of the customers that they're targeting. People who buy the Switch may have no interest in a platform like PlayStation. They say here Argentina by far has been the most heavily affected by the prices. God of War has doubled from 4,199 pesos to 8,499 pesos. And Spider-Man Remastered has also doubled, while prices of Sackboy and Returnal have risen by 67%. And they're doing this, and no one is batting an eye at it. This was one of the main things that PlayStation argued against Xbox for, saying that, hey, if they have Call of Duty, they're going to be able to raise the prices, degrade the game, and do all these anti-consumer things where we won't be able to compete because of that. And then you see PlayStation doing exactly what they argued against. The hypocrisy is actually quite comical when you sit back and think about it. But you don't ever see them doing this in the United States. You don't see them raising the price of the PS5. You don't see them raising the price of their games in the United States because they know that market is much closer than these other markets. And if they do that, it could affect their lead. It could affect where they are. So again, all the anti-competitive stuff that PlayStation was accusing Xbox of, they literally are going and doing it themselves. So that isn't great news. If you are a PlayStation fan, if you have a PS5 and you're looking to buy these games, or not even a PS5, if you want to play these games on Steam, and I'm assuming at some point maybe they'll do the same with the prices on the actual PS5 itself. Now we'll move over here to the next thing. Just a quick thing to end off this video. Just some Xbox news when it comes to the Korean Fair Trade Commission. They are expected to decide on the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition next month, and seemingly it's expected that they will be approving this deal. It says here, is expected to be approved easily like Japan because Xbox market share is very low in Korea. And this was the news. Obviously, I don't understand this. I don't speak Korean. But if we translate the tweet here, it says, domestic PlayStation can't win. Fair Trade Commission, Microsoft pulls Blizzard, conclusion next month. Source, the Xbox Information Cafe. So take that with you what you will, because this is a account called Korean News, or it's Korean Xbox News. So next month it'll be another decision on top of the EU. It'll be Korea seemingly going to go ahead and pass this deal. But I think once the hammer drops from the CMA to either pass or block this deal, I think that's going to have a ripple effect across all of the other places. Pretty much we kind of know what they're going to do, because that, from what we understood, was the CMA and the EU were the main big ones that probably would have the biggest roadblocks for Xbox. And if the CMA decides to pass this deal, I'm guessing the EU is going to also pass the deal, then it'll be up to the FTC. But if the FTC goes against what the CMA and the EU does, that will be, I think, pretty surprising. I feel like if the CMA approves it, the EU approves it, you'll see the FTC make a deal with Xbox, with Microsoft. But that's just my absolute complete guess and assumption. I really don't have any idea if that will actually happen. And then finally here, some Diablo 4 news. We know Diablo 4 is coming out soon. They are going to be having a second beta May 12th to 14th, and it is going to be a server slam, and it's an open beta. Everyone can jump in there. If you played the first beta, it was awesome. I loved it. Pretty excited for this game. I don't know if I will play it right away though, just because of the time. I would have to sink into it with all my other stuff on the backlog, but I did play the beta and I will probably be checking this out, which probably will get me hooked to go out and buy it right away on day one, because it was awesome. So May 12th to 14th, server slam, and all classes are going to be available. You're going to be able to explore the first zone, and if you've seen the map of this game, it's just insanely huge. Like, there's so much. This is going to be a game that you could literally just spend all of your time playing and always have stuff to do. You're going to be able to play up to level 20, and you're going to be able to experience the story from prologue through to Act 1, be able to battle bosses and all that type of stuff. And when it also comes to Diablo, I know there's been a lot of talk of frame rates. Be rest assured, Diablo 4 will be running at 4K 60 FPS on the Xbox Series X and 1080p 60 FPS on the Xbox Series S, which to me, there's always talk about the consoles. We've gone over this with the Redfall thing. It is absolutely not the fault of the Series X or the Series S as to why Redfall was at 30 FPS. It was development, it's optimization, it's all that other type of stuff. This is just another check mark, I would say, showing what these consoles can run games smoothly, or can run games at 60 frames per second. And I think there's always a lot of outrage. There's always a lot, I think, over exaggeration when something bad happens. And of course, criticism over 30 FPS of Redfall is very validated. I mean, I even made a video criticizing it, but that was it. Then I moved on and talked about other stuff pretty much. But at the end of the day, throughout this generation, there have been far more games that would show that these consoles are capable of good performance, 60 FPS on both the Series S and the Series X, if these games are optimized properly, than the other way around. So there's been a far more check marks in the positive row, I would say, over the negative row. And I guess Diablo 4 here is just another example of that. So I will leave the video there, guys. Let me know what you think about all of this stuff, from PlayStation's acquisition to raising prices to the Diablo 4 stuff. I would love to hear all your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.